Hey YouTube, today we are watching The Horrors of GoFundMe. This video looked really interesting. Yeah, welcome to the channel. I don't know if you guys are new or old or just looking for something to watch while eating, but sit back and relax and I hope you enjoy. Okay, we do need an uplifting video soon though.
It was a warm October evening in Dallas, Texas.
Oh, he's got a
Couple
cool voice.
Jennifer and Jamie Faith are out celebrating their 8th wedding anniversary. The pair reminisce about how they originally met on a blind date 15 years prior. Back in those days, they were both living in Phoenix, Arizona.
Where do you find blind dates? I kind of want to go on one. How do you, is it like I don't even know if it's a thing. I'm sure it's a thing. Where the fuck do you find out where blind dates are happening?
Jamie was a technology director for American Airlines and Jennifer was a speech pathologist. According to their friends, they had bonded fairly quickly over their shared interests, and soon enough, the couple were inseparable.
Get a friend to hook me up.
They'd eloped 7 years later in Las Vegas in 2012, and in 2017, they'd relocate to Dallas after Jamie earned a big promotion. And 3 years after that, they're sitting at dinner reliving all the memories. They joke about the love book that Jennifer had made for Valentine's Day a few months.
See, but what if they're really ugly? I'd be so offended. I'd be like, holy shit, bro, what are you... I don't know. I'd be upset with my friend.
Months prior, one that thanked Jamie for the wonderful life he had given her. Before they knew it, their special day was over, and the next one would launch them right back into their usual routine.
I don't want some French woman.
Early, and at approximately 7:35, they take their dog Maggie out for a walk. The couple considered this to be their bonding time. It was how they started their mornings, with this one being yet another perfect duplicate of countless before it. Or at least...
Why is the footage like, you know, the loving wife of the antagonist of a thriller movie, just before she gets killed, and then fucking Matt Damon. I'm just thinking of Born Identity.
That's how it started.
God, I love Born Identity. These fucking long.
By 8 a.m., police are rushing to the Oak Cliff neighborhood. They stop outside the Faith's family home, where they're greeted with a bizarre scene. From inside the cruiser, they can already hear hysterical screaming.
Born Identity.
Once they exit, they see a dog running around wildly in the street. Then they turn to the driveway towards the source of the screams. There, they find a woman lying on the ground, all bound up in duct tape.
Oh my god.
It's Jennifer. A few feet in front of her in the street, there's a man lying face down. It's Jamie, and he's not moving. The police call over an ambulance, but the paramedics
What does this have to do with GoFundMe?
He's been shot several times. When Jennifer finally calmed down enough to speak, she told investigators that a masked man had ambushed the couple just moments after they left their house. He immediately raised a gun and shot Jamie at point blank before knocking her over and binding her hands with duct tape. He apparently tried to snatch her necklace, but fled before he could rip it off once Jennifer started screaming. Considering this was during COVID, somebody wearing a face mask unfortunately wasn't much of an identifying feature, and Jennifer couldn't offer much of a physical description past labeling her attacker as medium built and having black eyes. Over the following days, Jennifer could be seen on TV giving tearful interviews, pleading for people to come forward if they had any information about her husband's murderer. It was a tragic story, and people felt genuinely awful for the new widow. One local who had been particularly touched by the heart-wrenching story had an idea as to how she could help make things a little better.
Oh, is this where GoFundMe comes in?
She logged onto a website called GoFundMe.com, a crowdfunding platform. You can use this website to collect donations in support of pretty much anything. While many GoFundMe campaigns are centered around financing some new product or creative project, many of them are also launched to support individuals in times of need.
Should I start a GoFundMe for a hair transplant?
And that's exactly what this community member had in mind when she set up a GoFundMe campaign to support Jennifer.
Or turkey teeth.
It wouldn't...
I'm desperately trying to be like... I'm really trying to bring a smile. This video seems really sad. I should probably focus.
Fundraiser to spread around, Within a few weeks, it had raised just over $60,000.
It's really fucking
The
good.
campaign was set up under the funerals and memorials section, and the money was raised with the intentions of helping to pay for funeral expenses and to help Jennifer get back on her feet, as Jamie had been the sole provider for their family at the time of his death. The widow eventually withdrew $58,000 from the campaign, and it's here where things get strange.
Oh no.
While she would organize a funeral for her husband, she'd end up leaving the more than $6,000 bill for it unpaid, despite having 10 times that amount in her savings just from the GoFundMe
Oh my god, has she killed him?
alone. What exactly was she planning on using the money for? Well, it wouldn't take long for investigators to start raising their eyebrows after seeing how Jen was spending her donations. She had bought an expensive large-screen TV,
Oh fuck.
but not for herself. No, she had it shipped to an address in Tennessee. She also took out 2 new credit cards, both of which she also mailed to the same Tennessee address. Finally, she started sending numerous Venmo transfers to a man named Darren Lopez.
The
The police
affair.
would start learning whatever they could about this man.
Do you think she's got this man to kill her husband?
He was a US Army veteran, one who had fought in Iraq. He had been medically discharged after suffering a traumatic brain injury from a roadside bomb, which would also lead to him developing
bet, yeah.
PTSD. He divorced his wife in 2018 and began living an isolated life in rural Tennessee.
Oh god.
The authorities would discover that Darren had indeed known Jennifer. In fact,
Oh
they had
fuck.
been high school sweethearts. This was a suspicious connection, and it only grew more so the closer investigators looked. One detail noted by witnesses at the crime scene was a Nissan Titan that had sped out of the neighborhood shortly after gunshots were heard. It had a large T decal printed on it. The police would manage to get their hands on some aerial surveillance photos of Darren's property, and sure enough, a Nissan Titan sporting a T was parked right next to his house. In January 2021, they'd arrest Darren, with investigators even finding the murder weapon stained with Jamie's blood in his house,
Oh.
along with the credit cards and TV that Jennifer had bought. It was damning evidence, but the case only expanded once they searched through his phone. In March 2020, just 1 month after Jennifer had made her husband a love book thanking him for the wonderful life they shared, she would reconnect with Darren over the internet. Her former boyfriend had made his first ever social media profile specifically with the intention of reconnecting with her. They began texting, which eventually escalated to over 500 messages sent per day between the pair. While on the surface everything seemed fine between Jennifer and her husband, she'd start telling Darren that behind the scenes, he had been mistreating her. She'd tell him horrible details of the supposed turmoil she suffered at the hands of her husband, with absolutely wild allegations that I can't even bring up on YouTube. Just trust me when I say it's probably worse than you're expecting.
This poor fucking man, dude.
While Darren had once said he saw Jamie as a good guy, his perception would quickly shift as Jennifer continued venting to him. Things would get worse when Jamie supposedly sent the ex-lover a threatening email, complete with explicit photos of Jennifer's injuries. Soon after, Jamie would begin texting Darren similarly threatening messages on a regular basis. By October 2020, Jennifer told Darren that she began to believe her life was in danger. She'd float the idea of shooting her husband, a proposition that Darren enthusiastically accepted. He'd drive 6
Oh my god, if she's fucking manipulated this just to get away from her husband, fucking hell. Like, you can communicate with him. If you don't love him, you don't need...
150 miles down to Dallas and would lay in
It
wait
can't be that
outside the
hard to
couple's
communicate
house
with
all
people.
night, eventually getting up and pulling out his gun once he saw Jennifer and Jamie walking out the front door with their dog early in the morning.
Jesus.
In February 2021, Jennifer would also be arrested, first for obstruction of justice after police found a text message
just get
instructing
divorced,
Darren to
exactly.
remove the
It's
decal
like-
from his car, but a few months later, she'd be indicted on interstate commission for murder for
Holly.
hire, a much more serious federal charge that could potentially expose her to the death penalty. She'd eventually agree to a plea deal that sentenced her to life in prison. Shockingly, during her plea hearing, she would admit that all the stories she told Lopez about the stomach-churning mistreatment she suffered at the hands of her husband were completely made up. She had even made fake accounts impersonating him and used them to send those threatening messages with the photos of her injuries being random pictures she found on the internet. The story had now turned from
What the fuck is wrong with you? You've literally just killed a man for no reason because you wanted somebody else. Like, oh, bro, people who
A
can't
pair of
communicate, I don't
star-crossed lovers
understand
who
this
kill
fucking
to be
shit.
with each other, to a woman who had spent months deceiving and emotionally manipulating a disabled veteran suffering from PTSD into becoming a murderer. The judge who ruled over her case would describe her as, quote,
pure evil.
That's death penalty. I'm sorry. You've literally just killed a man for no reason because you're too immature or you're too pathetic to talk to him. If you don't love him, divorce him.
Lopez would be sentenced to 62 years in prison, being eligible for parole after 30. Jennifer, on the other hand, will almost certainly spend the rest of her days behind bars in federal prison. Her GoFundMe campaign would be taken down after her arrest, with her donors surely disgusted with the fact that they willingly handed over their hard-earned money to such a morally bankrupt criminal. Luckily, they were able to request a refund, with GoFundMe generously eating the costs themselves, considering Jennifer had already run off with most of the money. While we don't know all the details of what happened to the funds raised in her campaign, we do know one thing. Jennifer Faith is one of the most evil individuals to ever collect donations on GoFundMe. The keywords there being one of. Everybody knows that crowdfunding platforms are rife with scams and deceitful campaigns of all kinds. After all, anybody can set up a GoFundMe page for just about anything within the terms and conditions. With it being possible to translate people's emotional investment into actual cash, it's not terribly surprising for these platforms to attract plenty of conmen. But things get much more disturbing when you get into the darker side of internet crowdfunding crimes. Jennifer's story.
It's not GoFundMe related, but the worst ones I don't see on TikTok anymore. You know the children with like really rare birth defects, and it's like the parents sitting next to their kid, going, "Oh my god!" Like just farming donations. Like that's so fucking sad. Like how is your first how would you have a child who is born probably with excruciating like difficulties and probably struggles with a bunch of things, and your first idea is, holy shit, I can monetize it?
Is unfortunately not a unique one. In fact, her criminal profile almost perfectly matches that of her cruel peers who also had GoFundMe campaigns. They rely on emotional manipulation to do horrible things to others, and also to elicit sympathy from unsuspecting members of their communities. This is a very deceitful brand of criminal, and the stories about disturbing GoFundMe campaigns
Yeah, there's
have a
GoFundMe
bit
in
of
the
a
UK.
depressing and enraging edge to them. Especially this next one. Once again, our story starts with somebody leaving home to walk the dog. In this case, it's Rudy Farias. He's a 17-year-old living in Houston, Texas, and he yells out to his mom Janie to let her know he's leaving. 20 minutes passes, and Rudy should be walking through that front door any minute. But he
What are you
doesn't.
watching? The horrors of
An
GoFundMe.
hour passes, and then several more, but still, Rudy doesn't return. The single mom begins to worry. Eventually, someone does show up at the front door. But it's not Rudy. It's one of the two family dogs he had taken out. It apparently found its way home on its own. The next morning, Janie files a missing persons report with the police. A nonprofit known as EcuSearch offers to help, and they begin distributing flyers around the local area. They describe Rudy as having a slight limp from an injured leg, and also suffering from a couple...
Do you think there's more kidnappings in the US because of the way like the towns are built? Because I feel like British towns and like European towns, they're so tight knit and close to each other. I feel like it's a lot. I mean, obviously, you still could get kidnapped, obviously, but because I feel like in the US, you could have a bunch of houses and then you'd have to walk a mile to the supermarket alongside a massive road with like nothing, because it's not connected in any way. I don't know. I think that because like if I mean, I can obviously I can go, oh, I'm going into town, but like in town, it's so tight knit and close that there's almost always someone around. So, yeah, but I don't know, because I know that America has weird zoning where like you can't have supermarket, you have like housing zoning and then you have commercial, and you can't like merge the two. Well, you can in some states, but it's not really connected. Like you can't have a bunch of houses and like there's not like a Walmart local. Like I don't think that exists. But Yeah.
mental health problems
I
like
wonder if that
anxiety
plays
and
a factor.
depression. 2 weeks pass and still,
Just
nobody
more
can find
opportunities
Rudy.
to do it.
It's as if he vanished into thin air. Janie decides to launch a GoFundMe to help finance a private search effort for her son.
Trivia.
It has an oddly lofty goal, $75,000.
Jesus Christ.
Despite the flyers describing Rudy as merely having a minor injury and some common mental health issues, this page describes him as suffering from physical and mental disabilities. She'd then go on to do several media interviews where she tells the public her son is non-verbal and is unable to communicate with others.
Oh my god, you horrible person.
Weeks would turn to months, and months would turn to years. The GoFundMe would slowly rake in more money, but still, there was no sign of Rudy. As others lost hope, his mom Janie remained adamant that he was out there somewhere. And indeed, some signs would eventually pop up that appeared to bolster her resolve. In September 2018, a couple family
Which
members
definitely
contacted
has.
the police to tell them that they had spotted Rudy behind a relative's property. Officers searched the location, but unfortunately couldn't find any evidence that anybody had been there. Still though, this could be a reason to be hopeful, and with time, only more would come along. Neighbors would begin sporadically coming forward with reports.
Do you reckon that she's got a relative to take him and then she will use him to go out and like so that someone spots him, fuels the case, gets more clicks, gets more donations?
That they had seen Rudy around the neighborhood, but
Hello,
when the
Emily.
police came to look, they could never
BA,
actually
you should
find
come join
any
on
sign
Twitch.
of him. It was as if he was a specter haunting the street he vanished on. That's not how Janie saw it, though.
There's
She
about
seemed to
18
remain
people in there
hopeful that her
talking.
son was
Should
still
we
out there
join?
waiting to be found, as she continued to collect money at GoFundMe to help keep the search effort going. This is more or less how things would play out for the following few years. At least
I don't know if there's a documentary about it, but there was that girl who was like locked in her room from the age when she was like 4 or something, and she never left her room. There's also a weird one about a family who chained all their children to the bed, but like would take them to Disney and stuff, and it only took one of them jumping out of a window to escape. And she'd never left the house before, or one she had, but never left it without her parents.
until 2023. In June of that year, the police would receive a 911 call reporting an unresponsive man found lying on the ground outside a church in southeast Houston. They rush over, and sure enough, they discover an unconscious man covered in cuts and bruises.
Oh god.
They took note of the necklace he was wearing. It looked familiar. Where had they seen it before? It wouldn't take them long to figure out where it came from. The man was quickly identified as none other than Rudy Farias. The police call his mom and she rushes over to the scene, elated to finally see her son again after 8 years. An ambulance is called and emergency responders begin evaluating the formerly missing man.
See, he's making it sound like she missed him, like she isn't the one to blame.
This is where things get weird.
Unless you can do a 180.
Janie starts acting strangely when the ambulance
Oh
arrives.
shit.
She tells the police that she doesn't want her son to be taken to the hospital, and she takes him home herself. News breaks out of Rudy's return, and Janie describes the event as a miracle. A nonverbal, vulnerable boy turned adult survived on his own for 8 years and then found his way back home to his family. While Janie put on a celebratory face, others were a little skeptical of the whole situation.
I'm sorry, if your kid is found laying on the ground with cuts and bruises, and the mum goes, "I'm not taking him to the hospital," that's
The police
like
begin
such a
questioning
red
neighbors
flag.
more closely.
It's crazy.
The reports of Rudy having been around the neighborhood weren't just random Bigfoot-esque sightings. Some of them had even interacted with him. One of them told the police that Rudy regularly visited their house to spend time with their children, stating, quote,
That boy has never been missing.
"The more they dug, the worse the situation began to appear. They found that Jenny had had several run-ins with the police where she had been with a young adult that physically resembled Rudy. The man would identify himself by a different name each time, and Jenny would tell the officers that he was her nephew. In reality, though, it had been Rudy all along. His mama coached him to misidentify himself to officers, telling him that if he didn't, he would be arrested and thrown in jail. Police and other organizations would scramble to arrange interviews
Things
with
people
Rudy
did
after
funny,
his
huh?
return, and to their surprise, he wasn't nonverbal. He had no problems whatsoever speaking with them. One of the first people to interview Rudy was Quanell X, a civil rights activist and leader of the new Black Panther Party. Shortly after they finished speaking, he'd end up having to report what he heard to the police. He alleged that the missing man had disclosed some very disturbing details about his life during his disappearance, stating that Janie had allegedly drugged him on multiple occasions and coerced him to quote-unquote play daddy.
Oh, for fucking son.
That's about all I can say on YouTube. I'll leave the rest to your imagination. Quanel X is a controversial figure, with some in his community even going as far as to label him an outright fraud. So it's important to take these allegations with a healthy dose of skepticism. When Rudy spoke with the police directly, he wouldn't mention any of the details put forth by Quanel X. What he would tell them is that he had actually returned home on March 8th, 2015, less than 24 hours after he had left to walk the dogs. His mom had already reported him as missing, but she failed to inform the police of her son's return. She'd only worked to keep the lie going and began to hide Rudy from the world, manipulating the young adult by telling him he'd be arrested by the police if he were to ever come forward. She'd been exaggerating the details of her son's mental and physical illness to the public, with a shy teenager turning into a vulnerable, nonverbal adult within the span of just a few weeks. A month after his return, Rudy would give his first public interview with the media. He'd state that his mom had brainwashed him, and he essentially remained confined to their family home for the majority of his 8 years missing.
8 years?
He denied the serious allegations put forth by Quanel X, but would state that Janie did sometimes make him sleep in her bed with her, alleging that she regularly crossed personal boundaries with him. He'd state that she'd make him help her with her day job, forcing him to work for up to 12 hours at a time, and only paid him $60 a day for doing so. Shockingly, Janie would never be charged with a crime here.
Fuck off. Fuck off.
Despite having maintained a false police report and given multiple false identities to the police.
That's actually disgusting.
The authorities would close this out by stating, it's not a crime to be missing, and that Rudy was a legal adult for the vast majority of his time in captivity.
But you're not going to investigate the claims that he was touched?
In terms of motivation, many people do believe that Janie had hoped to financially profit from the GoFundMe campaign she had started, which was likely why the funding goal was so unusually high.
I don't know if you're a cop how you could live with yourself after finding that out.
Circumstances. She would end up...
as a human, that is fundamentally wrong. And you should investigate that more. You can't just be like, well, missing isn't a crime.
Making a few $1,000s from it, but GoFundMe would take down her campaign and even permanently banned her from the platform after news broke out of Rudy's return. Let's be clear though, finances are just one aspect of this case. The bigger overall picture points to a pattern of abuse that escalated into a mother manipulating her son to be her prisoner. You might think it's strange that police didn't lay any charges here, but that decision would have ultimately been left to Rudy. And it's possible he might have just wanted to leave this whole situation behind him. The last we've heard, Rudy has cut off all contact with his mother and just wants to live a normal life. While we're likely never going to learn the full details of this case, I do think we can say one thing. Janie didn't just manipulate her son, but she attempted to deceive the public as well, falsely stating that Rudy was missing and lying about his mental and physical health in order to elicit donations on her GoFundMe campaign. In fact, this wasn't even the only campaign that Janie had set up for her son.
Oh my God.
Before he even disappeared, she had supposedly set up a different campaign, one where she alleged that Rudy was suffering from cancer and needed money for his treatment. Supposedly that one was deleted right before Janie made the page to fund Rudy's search effort. Financial gain from crowdfunding is an aspect that ties both of the cases we've looked at today, but there are other ways criminals can make use of GoFundMe. Herbert Sweely and Timothy Smith were a popular and well-liked couple. Living in Ocala, Florida, they were quite active in their local gay community, with 59-year-old Timothy in particular being known as somewhat of a social staple in community events.
Do you know who he looks like? And I'm terrified that he's going to do a horrible crime. But sorry, this really just reminded me of this. Where is he? Oh, here he is. I forgot his name, but I found it. I don't know why. He's very much reminding me of him. The beard doesn't really match. He's giving Chester V. Chester V is the goat though.
He was the executive director of Brookdale Shawmell Pine Castle, an assisted living and memory care community.
Sorry.
In his spare time, he was a local activist, being involved with Ocala's Walk to End Alzheimer's, Marion County's Continuity of Care, and the annual Festival of Trees. Friends described him as warm and outgoing, never failing to be the life of the party. They say opposites attract, and that can be easily seen by looking at Timothy's husband Herbert, who who he'd been married to for 8 years. He was a 55-year-old handyman who tended to mostly take on odd jobs here and there. Friends described him as cold and rough.
Sorry, this is a very random critique. I'm so jealous of people who are like that. Who can just fucking do that. Who are like, oh, I need that fixed, I'll do it. And just know how to do it. Coolest people ever.
Meaning that he was an unusually unemotional person. He had an adult daughter from a previous relationship, and the three all lived together in Ocala. Timothy, though, had a second residence.
Why do these houses always have like a serial killer in?
An apartment.
Like, it's all every serial killer movie or show is set in a house like that.
You see, the couple had an open relationship, and they'd used this residence for intimate encounters with other men that they'd meet on social media. This was a secretive aspect of their life, and we only even know about the second apartment because of what would eventually be discovered there.
Oh no.
In March 2023, Timothy would fail to show up for work, which would prompt Herbert to call 911. After a short investigation, police would discover Timothy's second apartment and manage to borrow a key from his landlord. They'd head over to the building and make their way up to the door of the unit, cautiously opening it and going inside. There, they'd find Timothy Smith, all sprawled out on the floor. He had clear physical trauma to his face and neck, and detectives noticed a strong smell of chemical cleaning fluids as well.
Oh god.
It was obvious he was dead. Herbert would appear to be publicly devastated by the news. He'd make a tearful Facebook post and would launch a GoFundMe campaign to gather donations to fund a celebration of life. From an outside perspective, it seemed like Herbert was a heartbroken husband suffering from the immense grief that comes along with the loss of a partner. But behind the scenes, police were forming a bit of a different opinion. A family friend would report that they saw Herbert disposing of many of Timothy's belongings in the days following his death, including clothes and framed family photos. They also told police they overheard Herbert complaining that he had to hurry to clean Timothy's car before investigators could get to it. In the same week he launched a GoFundMe campaign, police would officially label Herbert as a suspect in his husband's death. They'd start to request follow-up interviews, but the 55-year-old was uncooperative, indicating that he would only speak further if granted total immunity in the case, something the police obviously weren't planning to offer him. In August, they'd publicly name him as a suspect, and he'd eventually be charged with first-degree murder a few months later in November. It would take 2 years for him to stand trial, but when he finally did in September 2025, we'd learn the whole story for the first time.
Oh fuck, what did he do?
You see, Herbert and Timothy had been having some problems in their marriage. Timothy had been pulling away from his husband, even going as far as to pursue job opportunities in other cities. This greatly spooked Herbert, who almost fully relied on his partner to fund their luxurious lifestyle. Timothy did, however, carry life insurance, and Herbert stood to gain more than $300,000 if he were to suddenly pass away. And on March 23, 2023, he took matters into his own hands. He gave Timothy a massive dose of Benadryl, an entire bottle, and proceeded to strangle him as he was dozing off from the medication. He then took his body to the second apartment and staged a scene to make it look like an intimate encounter gone wrong with some anonymous partner from the internet. From there, he tried his best to play the part of the grieving husband. He made sad social media posts, vented to friends and family, and even set up a GoFundMe campaign to fund a funeral, one that he never actually withdrew the funds out of. This fundraiser was simply a piece of a cover story, but one that failed to do its job after police actually began digging into the details of this case. Herbert Sweatley was sentenced to life after a brief trial. He's currently in the Florida prison system, and he'll never have the possibility of parole.
Good.
Like I said earlier, GoFundMe is a place where people can convert public sympathy into cold hard cash.
So many people are motivated by money.
It plays an important role in a country like the USA, where it's normal for people to get saddled with hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars of bills after experiencing some unforeseen medical emergency. It's become a crutch in a flawed system, one that's helped countless people get through the hardest parts of their lives. But it's also one that can be turned on its head to allow criminals to produce money from their crimes in a way they never would have previously been able to before the internet. That's it for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching.
What a great video. Holy shit. Okay, we definitely need to watch something upbeat next, because holy shit. We're all going to start tearing up. Anyway, YouTube, thank you so much for watching this video if you stayed all this way. If you watched the end of the video, comment. Comment lightsaber. There we go. That will do. I've got a lightsaber over there. Have a great evening, everybody. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoy. Subscribe. Come join the Twitch streams if you can at some point. Goodbye. Goodbye.